Hi and welcome to another episode of Making Things. Today I'll be showing you how to make a birdhouse for chickadees, which are very friendly birds, so good to have in the yard, especially if kids who want to be able to feed the birds out of their hand. Using only a little piece of scrap ply, so 2x2 is fine. You can even go a little bit smaller, and just 4 cheap nails and a little bit of glue, no other hardware. So to build your chickadee house, you're going to need a few pieces. Obviously the sides, back, front, roof, floor, that goes without saying. But what's going to be ideal is a piece of wood that's at least 14 inches wide and 20 inches, well, at least 18 inches long, but really you want 20 inches long. But at that size, it can easily be just a little piece of leftover, which is why I like this little project. So along one strip of 4 inches wide, you can do the front piece, 8x4. You can do the back piece, which is going to be 4 by, in this case, a bit less than 10, but normally it would be 4 by 10. And the reason you want it to be longer is you want a bit of a tail at the back so that you can more easily fasten the birdhouse. Now in this case, since it's 18 3/4, that's going to be 9 3/8 plus a tail, but same difference at that point. On the other side, you can do a 4.5 inch piece. You just split it in half, and that's going to be your sides. Once you've got everything done, you're going to be able to cut your diagonal. In fact, you can measure that ahead of time. You know that the front is going to be 8 inches, so you can just, do your corners, and you've got your diagonals cut. Now, the reason this is 4.5 inches, this is 4 inches, is I'm using 1/4 inch ply. You can go thicker, but you don't really want to go too thick. Otherwise, the birds that are perching on the edge of the hole will have a hard time getting through the hole because they're going to lose their grip as they're trying to go through that thicker piece of ply. So 1/4 inch is really good. They can hang on and just kind of tip themselves inside the birdhouse, especially when there's no dowel, which is the case with a chickadee birdhouse, because you don't want the sparrows getting in or actually just messing with them even if they can't get in. So with this little piece of scrap that I had, I've got my 4.5 inch, and then in the center I've got 5 1/4 inch left. So actually a bit more than that, but once I cut these 2 pieces of my table saw, the kerf's going to be out. I'll just make my my bottom and my top, and that'll be it. Now, of course, you don't actually need to make all these measurements in advance, especially not on the width. I mean, if you're using a table saw, use your fence properly. It's pretty simple to do this. But just for illustrative purposes, or if you're doing this, with kids and they're going to be helping you, if they're old enough to start using the tools to do the cutting with supervision, although you may know how to do this, it may help them to have those lines there. And in fact, if they're too young, they can still use this with a hand saw. If they're too young for a table or circular saw, but maybe old enough to have the strength and endurance to cut through the piece. So it's a nice addition. Alright, now we've got all of our pieces. So the front, back, the 2 sides, the base, and the roof. Now what we need to know is how far down we're going to cut our triangle. So I like to wait till I've already got my front cut, because if you're off by a little bit, you can just get a nicer finished product if you actually use the piece as a guide rather than assume that all your cuts are going to be fantastic. So now I've got my little line for the triangle. I'm going to go corner to corner. Back to the chop saw. Just for a quick point, these little laser lines are usually pretty gimmicky, but the one time I do like them is when I am trying to get the right angle cut like that. So if you've got your line already, you can use the laser to turn your base to actually match your line properly. So that removes a bit of ambiguity if you're not measuring too accurately, or these little lines, I mean, they're kind of not super. So with a cheaper saw, it helps a lot to have a little laser, specifically for getting the right angles if you've already drawn your piece. So the reason I really like these little electric screwdrivers is you can put smaller bits in it, and since as I had said earlier, this is a project that's fun to do with kids. You know, you don't need to give them a full-size drill, and you can get them to drill the tiny holes for the nails, so they can do more, and they like it. They feel useful. So we've got our holes now, and it means that when everything will be assembled, the base will be able to just rest on the nails, and that's it. Dirt cheap mechanism. Next step is to start assembling. So what you're going to need for this is a few clamps and some wood glue. Wood glue is going to do a much better job than anything else. Plus screwing or nailing across quarter inch ply would be a real headache. So now when we do the assembly, we want the back, the top of the back and the sides to be aligned. And like I was saying earlier, this little bit here is going to be what's going to help us brace the whole thing together. Oh, I had forgotten to make the hole there. Put all the glue, but good thing I didn't start assembling. That would have been a pain to do otherwise. Alright, so I'm having trouble with the nail gun. So, I'm going to have to do it the old-fashioned way. Curse a little, as it probably will fall at least once. That's okay. Alright, as soon as we start tightening this, it's also going to start getting tighter at the top. We can do the adjustments. Once we've got the clamps set, if you've got all four sides, it does become a lot easier. So, oh well. Now we're going to be able to tighten the back. Un morceau de fil. Okay. Alright, I'm going to set this here so it dries. I'll be able to wipe down the workbench. There you go. That's going to be a nice little birdhouse there. Now that the birdhouse is all set, well, in this case, since it was scrap ply, it did have a bit of a bow, so I was expecting I'd have to shave the base a bit. But regardless, just because things are never exactly quite perfect, just try to make sure you can fit it properly. You may have to shave it a little bit just to make sure it fits in there. And before we finish the assembly, the last part to do here is we're going to put a little nubbin at the bottom here. So again, any piece of scrap will work, whatever is big enough for you. In my case, I'm just using a couple different shims, just because they, are laying around and it'll fit. So just get a bit of wood glue, and once that's done drying, we'll be able to assemble the rest. So the last step now is to install the floor, and the reason for these little holes I made earlier is it's an easier way to not have hinges. Small hinges tend to be a little harder to install, so just pop the 4 nails through the holes while the floor is already in, and there you go. You've got a floor that's more than sturdy enough for the chickadees, and you now have a birdhouse for chickadees. I hope this was helpful to you. Please like, subscribe, leave your feedback. Have a good day.